to Blaze News, the Mandate, day 52. I'm Jill Savage. Tonight on the agenda, the March jobs report exceeded expectations, adding a whopping 228,000 jobs. But the Dow Jones had estimated only 140,000 jobs would be added. CNBC enthusiastically covered this story. Watch.
This is a big March jobs report. Non-farm payrolls beats estimates. 228,000 jobs. That would be the strongest this year, and it would comp to 323,000 indices of last year.
The National Association of Wholesale Distributors issued a statement in support of Trump's tariffs, saying they could lay the foundation for a more resilient and dynamic U.S. economy. Labor Secretary Lori Chavez explained how Trump's policies put the American worker first.
If we grow this economy, if we have positive job growth, people will start to keep more of their hard-earned dollars. They'll start to invest. They'll start to save. And I think you'll see those markets respond. Again, the president, went around during the campaign, and he's keeping his promises to the American worker. He is the president of the American worker. We align on that. I'm going to be on the ground starting this weekend in Pennsylvania talking to the American worker. I want to know what they're doing, what they care about, and I will report and advise the president on the positivity there. And we're going to start to grow this economy as we build the workforce here in America, and we're going to see these numbers continue to rise.
China announced it will impose a 34% retaliatory tariff on the United States that's set to go into effect on April 10th. A spokesperson claimed that Trump's tariffs would violate the World Trade Organization rules and that China will do what is necessary to defend its legitimate rights and interests. Meanwhile, California Governor Gavin Newsom announced plans to pursue strategic relationships with countries announcing retaliatory tariffs against the United States in an attempt to make them exclude California from those tariffs. Yesterday, Jonah Goldberg, he's the editor-in-chief of The Dispatch, he attacked Glenn Beck on X for giving Trump the benefit of the doubt on tariffs. Here's a bit of what Glenn had to say.
I think I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's the guy we have always wanted. We've wanted a really hard-nosed, twitchy-eye negotiator, somebody that just makes everybody at the table go, don't mess with him. He just might do it. Okay, so that's what he is. He's the best negotiator maybe in the business, in the world today. He is a great businessman. His gut has been right so many times. When I thought his gut was absolutely wrong, it turns out, oh, wow, it is like that.
In response, Jonah wrote, "Really, Glenn? Trump is the president you always wanted? The guy who ripped off blue-collar contractors, cheated on all his wives, tried to steal an election? Can't even explain how tariffs work while blowing up the international trading system. I don't recall you dreaming of such a president." And you guys, this isn't the first time that Jonah has mocked Glenn. Last month, he replied, "This is some shameful stuff, Glenn," about the possibility of America leaving NATO. And back in February, when Glenn called out Zelensky, he called him a little boy, Jonah replied, "Yes, and Donald Trump is a mature, self-controlled adult." But you know what? We here at Blaze Media appreciate that Mr. Goldberg is such an avid viewer. Trump's DOJ is working tirelessly to keep its promises, though. Attorney General Pam Bondi vowed on X that the department will not rest until MS-13 is dismantled and its members are behind bars.
Today, we're here to announce the arrest of 3 more MS-13 gang members who were in this country illegally, and they were in Florida. And we will be reviewing them. They've all been arrested for first-degree murder. We will be reviewing them to see if we will seek the death penalty. This has been a long-running investigation that started in 2015.
There's a shakeup coming to the World Economic Forum. Klaus Schwab is stepping down as chair after an investigation into allegations that the forum has a work environment that is hostile to women and Black people. Finally, Mike Pence will receive this year's John F. Kennedy Profile Encourage Award for, quote, putting his life and career on the line. by certifying the 2020 election. Let's go ahead and bring in Blaze News editor-in-chief Matthew Peterson. MP, we have to start with Jonah Goldberg, because when we look at this, right, he keeps going after Glenn Beck, and I think it gets more entertaining, more comical every single time.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because I hadn't thought about Jonah Goldberg in a really long time, since I wrote an obituary for him in 2018, and that was 7 years ago. So I remember, thinking at the time that he had been, if you don't know who he is, he used to work at National Review. He used to be part of a blog called The Corner back when they had blogs online. And really all day, people would check in and see what everyone at National Review was saying about various issues and what they were linking to, sort of like their Twitter accounts, right? So you kind of would refresh it all day if you were in the business. And it was relevant at the time because you had, the Bush ascendancy, just like Bill Kristol and the Weekly Standard. But of course, these people have rendered themselves so irrelevant. And now it's like this, this small little mouse, like nipping at the heels of Glenn, because Glenn, like a lot of people, at first, didn't know what to think of Trump, and didn't like him, and then changed their mind when they saw what he actually accomplished. And now these people are they can't let go. They can't let go. It's sad. So, if you bring up that article, I believe this is like 6-7 years ago, where I said at the end, this guy, I don't hold it against them. I don't hold it against all these people, Twilight of the Never Trumpers, right? It was over then. It's been over for a while. Like, these people are irrelevant. And in that piece at the very end, Paul Ryan, Arthur Brooks, AEI, these were all, seemingly fine, upstanding people, but they couldn't grasp what was going on. The Trump phenomenon made them sad. They just wanted to go into the West and diminish or go get a professorship or whatever. And at the end of that article, I just remember thinking it's a lot like a Quentin Tarantino movie that doesn't get enough love. It's like this scene right here, which we should roll now. This is what Jonah reminds me of.
What happened to you, man? Your ass used to be beautiful.
Now, Sam Jackson had to kill Robert De Niro in that scene, and he said, "What happened?" Because he became sloppy, and he said, "What happened? You used to be beautiful." Now, I wish, along with some people, that maybe that had happened to Robert De Niro's acting career back then, and we wouldn't have had to hear him rant and rave about Trump now. But that's the way that I think a lot of us feel about a lot of that old crew at National Review and Jonah Goldberg.
Klaus Schwab has never been accused of being beautiful, but he is stepping down. I don't know, a lot of people here on the network, Glenn has made Klaus Schwab famous. I feel like that he's still keeping Jonah Goldberg relevant. He kept Klaus Schwab in the headlines. Glenn is doing a big public service for all these guys.
Well, Glenn is the original gangster with a lot of this stuff, right? Klaus Schwab, he pointed out the evils of the WEF and all the global stuff, a long time ago, and was persecuted for it a long time ago, before it was cool, before everyone else. Klaus Schwab is someone who, of course, also happens to look like a supervillain. If I'm the comedian writing the story about this, we're going to say, what his next job is. Which you were saying earlier, maybe it's in the regions of hell somewhere, right? This guy,
7 rings. He can choose one of them.
He looks like a villain from a Bond movie, but also these people are responsible for a lot of evil. So, bye.
We talked about Mike Pence on the show yesterday. I guess we're the ones keeping Mike Pence relevant. That and the JFK profile for the Courage Award, as I said, putting his life and career on the line. I don't know. They might be overselling that a little bit after certifying the 2020 election. I just look at this and I'm like, is there some Mike Pence revival crew out there that we don't know about? Like, right? We aren't on these email lists. If they're out there, we are not getting them.
There is though. This is about rewarding Mike Pence for serving the Uniparty. And that's what this is about. So the idea that, profiles and courage, I think they gave Liz Cheney one too, because nothing says you're brave, right? Nothing shows your bravery. Nothing demonstrates how courageous you are, what a profile and courage you are, more than doing the thing that every powerful institution and media outlet in the country wants you to do. That's the profile on courage now. You did the thing that every single powerful interest in this country wanted you to do, and now we're going to give you an award for it. There's really nothing more elite than that. That's how the coasts work these days. And so kudos to Mike Pence. Get your 30 pieces.
I mean, Bill Kristol, David French, the list could go on. Just add Mike Pence in there to the list. Don't go anywhere, though. We'll have Jim Rickards on the show and get his expert opinion on the Trump tariffs coming up. You know that we spend so much time searching for the truth in headlines and even in our conversations, but how often do we stop and ask about what's on our plate? Now, once I started digging, I realized that most store-bought meat is actually shipped from overseas. Even if it says product of the USA, it doesn't matter, you guys. It's mainly from overseas. And that's why I made the switch to GoodRanchers.com. When you choose Good Ranchers, you know exactly what you're getting. It's just meat. They don't have any of the hidden additives. There's no antibiotics or hormones or seed oils. There's no misleading country of origin. It's just meat. And it's born, raised, and harvested right here in the United States. And the best part is, the meat is incredible. Now, I absolutely adore all of the steaks. You know that people go out there and they make their charcuterie boards. I made this steak board. We had added some grilled veggies there. It's so good. I want to go back to that day. I'm going to need to recreate this on my own at some point in time. But if you want to get into this, you can spring into action with their special now and subscribe to any of the Good Ranchers boxes, and you'll get free bacon, ground beef, chicken nuggets, or salmon in every box for a year, plus $40 off with my code Jill. It's GoodRanchers.com for food you can trust, because when it comes to what's on your plate, you deserve transparency. Use the code Jill. Good Ranchers, American meat delivered. Well, this week has been anything but boring. The global economy is already feeling the shockwaves. Trump's tariffs are just getting rolled out, but Trump isn't playing around when it comes to reshaping America's trade deals. So here to break it all down for what it means for your wallet, inflation, the future of the economy, is somebody who knows it just about better than anyone else. It's author of Money GPT, Jim Rickards. So Jim, thanks for joining the show once again, because we know, right? Trump is rolling out these new tariffs. He has all the confidence, like he always does. But you have some people out there, they're saying this is genius. And others are going, oh my gosh, look at the stock market. This is going to wreck the economy. So where do you land on this?
It's definitely genius. I can explain why. The stock market is it's not a great indicator of the economy as a whole, or the predictions where the economy is going to go. Stock market goes its own way. Now, obviously, the stock market's been crashing for the last couple of days. It's down significantly. If you go back to last December, it's down over 20%, close to 25%. Could go down 50%. I wouldn't rule that out. I don't think we're at the bottom. And everyone's blaming tariffs. Trump put these tariffs on and the stock market crashed. Well, two things. Number one, it's been going down since December. It didn't happen overnight. And number two, it has very little to do with tariffs. The stock market was in a bubble. So you have a bubble. Let's think of it as a balloon. You inflate it. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then a pin comes along and pops the bubble. Do you blame the pin, or do you blame the fact that the balloon was overinflated? I've been saying for 2 years the stock market's in a bubble. Now, what I make it clear, people say you can't see a bubble. Actually, that's not true. Bubbles are easy to spot. What's difficult is knowing exactly when they're going to pop. And so, it turned out to be tariffs was a catalyst. It didn't cause it. The tariffs have barely come into effect. They've been announced. They're going to come into effect. Trump's not bluffing. There are real serious economic effects from it. But the stock market was a bubble to begin with. It was just waiting for a pin to pop the bubble. It happened. And by the way, over 30% of the market cap of the S&P 500 was in 7 stocks. You had 493 stocks that have been doing nothing for a long time, and 7 stocks that were taking the whole market higher. They're down the most. We know what they are. It's Apple, Microsoft, Tesla, NVIDIA, Amazon, Apple, and a couple others. But that when you have that degree of concentration and that much of a bubble, you are going to get a result like this. It's not because of the tariffs, but it's possible the tariffs just changed the psychology enough to cause it to collapse. But it was an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah, I love hearing people say this out loud, and it is puzzling to me, the kind of self-delusion that exists in this country when it comes to the stock market. But let's talk about interest rates for a second, because we know that Trump obviously has made it very clear he wants those to be cut. Is Jerome Powell going to do that?
No. The next meeting is May 7th. They're not going to cut. They did a 50 basis point, 0.5% cut in September. They followed on with 2 more cuts in November and December. But then beginning in January, they went on pause. And the last 2 meetings, they've continued that pause. They always have buzzwords. Pause just means we're not doing anything. I mean, actually, if you listen to Jay Powell's press conferences after these Fed meetings, he kind of says we don't know what's going on. I mean, at least he's honest. But here's the thing. The Fed has to operate under what's called the dual state. What's that? It means they have 2 jobs. This comes out of Humphrey Hawkins in the 1970s. One job is to keep unemployment low. Okay. The other job is to keep inflation low. But it's based on an assumption that they are reciprocal, meaning usually if unemployment's low, inflation is high. But if unemployment is high, inflation is low. That's the assumption. Turns out that assumption is false. I could give you examples of, in the late 1970s, we had 12% unemployment and 15% inflation. They were both high. In the 2010s, we had low inflation and pretty low unemployment. It was coming down. They were both low. So this inverse correlation doesn't exist. It's invented, and it doesn't exist in the real world. What that means is that the Fed has to choose. They still have the dual mandate, but looking at unemployment, looking at inflation, they have to pick which one they're going to fight. They can't automatically keep the other one under control. Right now, the Fed is very relaxed about unemployment. It went up today to 4.2%. That's not outrageously high. The Fed says it's just normalizing. Job creation was decent. That may change in the future, but at least for now, it was a pretty good report. Meanwhile, inflation has been going up. It was 9.1% in June 2022, came all the way down to about 2.4% about 6 months ago. But in the last 6 months, it's been going up, and it's back up to around 3%. So right now, the Fed is relaxed about unemployment. They're more concerned about inflation. They're not going to raise rates, but they're not going to cut them either. So they're just going to do nothing. So I would kind of take the Fed off the table. They're not really a player at this point. Tariffs are a bigger deal. Stock market's a bigger deal. The Fed's just kind of there, but they're not going to cut rates. And Trump will be very unhappy. I'm sure we'll hear about it.
Well, if we go back to before the election, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is saying, okay, well, in the next 4 years, we might see a new restructuring of the global system, right? Essentially alluding to something like a new Bretton Woods. Do you think that this is going to happen within that time frame that he is suggesting? And do you think that these are the right people at the table to be doing such a thing?
Well, Scott Bessent, I'm a big fan of. I think he absolutely gets it. He's doing the right thing. Peter Navarro, I know Peter. I think Peter's the trade and manufacturing czar, but he's really the tariff guy. So he's doing the right thing. But there's a third player in this mix, less well-known, Stephen Moran, M-I-R-A-N. He's the chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors. But Moran had a paper, it was 26-page, single-spaced, very dense reading. But if you really want to understand it, you kind of have to read this paper. And he laid out something called the Mar-a-Lago Accord. By the way, go back to 2019, my book Aftermath, Chapter 6 is called the Mar-a-Lago Accord. So I actually came up with the phrase, but mine's a little different than Stephen's. So Bessent's plan is called the 3 arrows. He wants deficits to be less than 3% of GDP. He wants real growth to be higher than 3% of GDP. And he wants 3 million barrels of oil per day additional production. So 333, he calls it the 3 hours. We may not have time to go into all the math, but the math works perfectly. What it does, if you grow the economy faster than the debt, we're not going to cut the debt. And we're not going to pay off the debt, and forget about that. But all we really have to do is grow the economy faster than the debt. Then the debt to GDP ratio goes down. That's what you want. That instills confidence. So he's got that exactly right. Navarro's right on tariffs. These tariffs are very high right now, the ones that were put on yesterday. They're going to start to come down because, it's like a telethon. The lines are open. Call the White House. If you don't like your tariff, fine. Call the White House, talk to Peter, talk to the president, and you can cut a deal. And they're open for business. So that's going to find its own way. The Mar-a-Lago Accord is much more challenging. Now, What Moran wants is he wants to have his cake and eat it. He wants to weaken the dollar. He wants a cheaper dollar, which is actually deflationary. It fights inflation. But he does not want to lose the reserve currency status. So he wants to stay as a reserve currency, but cheapen the dollar. And by the way, part of that is saying to other countries, if you think you can get around tariffs by cheapening your currencies, forget it. Then that's when the trade war turns into a currency war. So he's preempting that, saying, no, we're going to cheapen the dollar. Too bad for you. But we want to keep our reserve currency status. So how's he going to do that? He has a system. I call it the traffic light system. He doesn't use that phrase, but he says we're going to divide countries into green, yellow, and red. So green means you're a friend. We give you the best tariff treatment. We have good trading relationships with you, and we extend the American security umbrella to include you. Yellow is neutral. It's like you're not an enemy, but you're not our best friend. You're okay. You'll probably get reciprocal tariffs and no security guarantees. Red is you're the adversary. So for now, it'll be Russia, China, North Korea, Cuba, and a few others. You're getting punitive tariffs. And not only no security guarantees, but we might actually confront you in the military and national security sense. So that's his system. Now, I said he wants to cheapen the currency and keep the reserve currency status. That's only been done twice in history. Two people did it. Richard Nixon did it when we went off the gold standard. Measured in gold, the dollar devalued 95% in between 1971 and 1980. 95% measured in gold. But we kept our reserve currency status because of the petrodollar deal. And I actually worked on the petrodollar deal. I worked with Henry Kissinger's deputy, Helmut Sonnenfeld, and we were actually planning the invasion of Saudi Arabia. Bill Simon and Jerry Parsky did the friendly deal, which is price oil in dollars, put the dollars in our banks, we'll lend it, and you buy our stuff. But I was on a team working on the invasion just in case they didn't go along with it, but they did. But that's how he did it. The other guy who did it was James Baker in 1985. So we were off the gold standard at the time, but he got the G5 countries, actually, the biggest economies at the time, UK, Germany, Italy, Switzerland, a few others, and they agreed to cheapen the dollar. And they did it by intervention, but they had cooperation. And then the Louvre Accord in 87, they said, okay, done. We accomplished it. Then we had 20 years of currency peace, not currency wars. Now here comes Moran, okay? He doesn't have the petrodollar deal because that's already been done. He doesn't have cooperation because who are the big central banks today? Well, it's China, for example. They're not exactly our friend. So how's he going to do it? He's going to use coercion, and that is very dangerous. So I'd be very, kind of get into it more if you like, but I'd be very careful about what he's doing. But Navarro's got the tariffs right, and Besant's got the debt to GDP right.
Fascinating. That was incredible. We have to get to it though, and you're the guy to do it. I'll give you the 2-minute challenge here to lay out how you see the tariffs moving forward. How do you game this out? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, it's a fairly simple formula. I think that the formula has been pretty well vetted at this point. Basically, you say, where did he get these tariffs? Well, it's a fraction. So you take our trade deficit with you. So the U.S. has deficit with most countries. Take the trade deficit, divide it by total imports, and then multiply that by 0.5. And that's your tariff. So a real simple example, let's say we have a $200 billion trade deficit with you, but our total imports from you are $400 billion. Well, 200 billion divided by 400 billion as 0.5 times 0.5 is 25%. So you get a 25% tariff. So it's a very simple formula. So how do you get out from under that if you're on the wrong end of that tariff? You're the one getting tariffed. Well, what you do is buy more stuff in the U.S. because that basically reduces the numerator or the fraction, get that 200 billion down to maybe 100 billion, and now your tariff would only be 12.5%. But here's the thing. So the math is easy. This is like fifth grade math. That's how you get your tariff. And the solution is to buy more stuff from the United States, which is what the president wants, reduce that trade deficit. But there's no automatic ratchet. It knows if you do the right thing, you don't automatically get lower tariffs. So what's the benefit for you? Well, the answer is it's a negotiation. Call the White House. Say, hey, we're thinking about buying more of your soybeans or more of your computers or agricultural goods or whatever it might be. And so that's all Trump did. Yeah, these tariffs are high, but like I said, the lines are open. Call the White House, work out a deal, and move in the right direction. So we've had the maximum pain. It's going to get better from here. The trade deficit is going to go down, and that's good for economic growth.
Fast. You can go back all the way through his books, from Currency Wars all the way through Money GPT. He will explain everything that he just broke down there for us. But when we come back, Chris Bedford will tell us what Congress needs to do to get back in line with Donald Trump. Stay with us. Well, everybody knows that college is a major investment, so it's important for you to do your homework. You want to go and find schools that are going to share your values, but who has time to dig through all those websites to find out what really matters? Well, today we can share some exciting online resources for you. ChristianCollegeGuide.com. It's the online directory for over 250 Christian college guides, and it's a one-stop shop, right? Like any other college guide, you're going to get the basics, you're going to get the acceptance rates, the tuition costs, the academic majors, but what makes ChristianCollegeGuide.com special is you can use this guide to learn about a school's faith tradition, its campus policies, and its spiritual life. All the things that actually show a college's true character. You can find the answers in over 150 questions for every school that's profiled, making it the definitive guide to Christian higher education. And the best part is it is completely free. So go to ChristianCollegeGuide.com, create a user profile, and get started today. It's ChristianCollegeGuide.com. President Trump is still pushing his one big, beautiful bill to solve America's economic woes. He took to Truth Social and said that the bill's priorities included permanent tax cuts, spending cuts, energy, historic investments in defense, and so much more. Trump also said that Senate Majority Leader John Thune and Speaker Mike Johnson are working together to make this bill a reality. So here with more is our Blaze Media senior politics editor, Chris Bedford. So Bedford, I mean, we've been talking about this one big beautiful bill for months now. So how likely is it that we actually get something passed?
Talking to even some of the more cynical people on Capitol Hill yesterday, and the feeling is still bullish. The Senate has been moving more slowly than anybody would like. They seem to take almost pride in that. And there's this weird thing that happens with the Senate. Well, Mike Johnson's got his hands full with the House of Representatives. He was still able, really actually a rare testament to the House Republicans' ability to get things together. And also, I've been told, a testament to the fact that Mike Johnson wasn't actually that closely involved in the negotiations on the budget. Was actually able to put something together a number of weeks ago that made all parties happy. And then they talked to the Senate. And the weird thing about the U.S. Senate is every single one of these personalities and what is essentially the most exclusive private club in the United States or in the world seems to operate from their own planet. Yeah, you have even guys who you generally agree with, friends of the show, like Mike Lee or Johnson coming out and saying, well, I think that this budget should cut $3 trillion. Or I think this budget should build a moon base. And all these different things, like no one had actually been negotiating literally across the building from them for weeks, very carefully to create something that could actually pass the House. So fortunately, there's actually been some bicameral discussion between them. It's really, I think, refreshing to get Republican senators going over to talk to the Republican members of the House of Representatives, especially when they're talking to allies and people they see eye to eye on. And that's brought a lot of people together to say, this thing, you've been working on it for weeks? I'm sorry, I only read my own Google News clips. I have no idea what you're talking about. And people are coming together in this last minute. Now, the Senate's also going about this in a little bit of a funny way. I guess they're going about it through the formal and traditional way. But one thing to remember is that senators hate to work. Most of them, not all of them, but most of them really hate to work. And the hardest work they ever do all year is the vote-a-rama, when everyone gets to add amendments and it gets chaotic and crazy and you're voting up and you're voting down, you're there till 2 a.m. And they're setting themselves up with this process for multiple opportunities for that sort of thing to really occur and become dangerous for the passage of this budget and send everyone back to the drawing board, essentially. Usually, I mean, they have to pass this through reconciliation, which is a process by which you can pass legislation that has only to do with the budget with only 51 votes, as opposed to a normal piece of legislation that would require 60 votes. They should probably start with that instruction, but the traditional way to do it is to come up with a budget. and then fit it into those instructions. So that's the way they're doing it. It's a little slow. It sets up a lot of different places, a lot of different jams where everyone's going to get out of their car and yell whatever they want into the sky, and they'll see how they plan that out. And then they get back into their cars and they drive a little further down the highway. But people are still bullish, even those cynics who are exhausted of this whole process, that you're going to have a budget out by Easter.
All right. Well, let's talk about the Beltway Brief, which everyone should be subscribed to if they're not already. Shame on you watching this show. You need to go to blaze.com/Bedford and sign up. As the bottom of the screen informs you. But if you have not signed up or you were too lazy to read today, in today's Beltway Brief, you break down Congress's no good week. So tell us about that, because we are 3 months into this presidency, and your point about this week is indicative of many of the larger themes that you point out here, where in a time in which Congress really doesn't have anything to show for themselves.
Yeah. I mean, I was calling people yesterday, talking to them when I was able to catch them, and saying, hey, what have you guys been doing? I mean, tell me, like, seriously, I don't mean to insult you. I'm not here to make fun of you. I know that you're just one of the people who's fighting, but what would you say the House has accomplished in these past? They've been here for 2 weeks longer than Donald Trump has been here. And there was a couple shrugs and some hard thoughts, like it was a quiz, like when you used to see the man on the street go around and say, what's your favorite Barack Obama quote? And people would just be completely stumped. Well, he's a great speaker. What's your favorite quote? All right, we've accomplished so much. So what have you actually done? And they have done some things around the peripheral. They did the National Defense Authorization Act, which usually always gets by, often with a little bit of fighting along the sides. They did the CR, which just kept the lights on, essentially. But that was actually a difficult negotiation to be able to do that with Republicans and not Democrats. Johnson had done every single previous bill of his, or big act of his tenure the year before. And the Senate had done confirmations. But there wasn't a lot. And the House got shut down for an entire week by this stunt over whether or not you should be able to do remote voting, which is probably not even constitutional in the first place, even if it does make you feel better in the moment. The House of Representatives has been plagued by a couple of things, though. It started out with a very thin majority, and then they lost 2 members. They lost Matt Gaetz, of course, and they lost Waltz. Matt Gaetz before they even were sworn in, and then Waltz to the White House. They're supposed to lose Stefanik. She is really unhappy about the fact that they pulled that, because it's a cool gig for someone from New York, I guess, to go to that disgusting building and yell at world leaders. I understand it. I understand the draw. And then you had literally 2 Democrats die in office. So that kind of gave them a little bit more breathing room, politically speaking. And then they added 2 more Republicans to replace Matt Gaetz just this week. But everything's still shut down. The House has to work with Paulina Luna to figure out a way to make it so that they can gavel back in without immediately passing or having a vote on her legislation to do remote voting. That takes the president, who's been trying to stay out of it, to weigh in, although he waded into this Thursday night when he said he'd been talking to Luna and it seemed like maybe this was a good idea. And then Mike Johnson said, no, you've been talking to me, and you realize that this is not a good idea. It just doesn't inspire a whole lot of confidence. And the same thing's going on in the Senate, where you've got 4 senators, Rand Paul, Mitch McConnell, Murkowski, and Collins, 1 to 4 of which are going to mess with everything that you do, basically, no matter what it is. And they have a difficult time actually moving there, and they don't even intend to move very fast there. They're like, well, we're going to do confirmations for the first 3 months, and then maybe we'll get to budget this summer. And then maybe we'll get to taxes by fall, was the initial idea. They were saying, well, don't we have until the end of the year to get to taxes? Where the House of Representatives was pointing out, listen, if small businesses are going to make decisions based on how much money they have next year, they really do need those taxes to be figured out before Christmas time. So it's just been sluggish. It's been slow. There's been slim majorities. They have had some discipline, and they've done a couple things. The House of Representatives has had a fairly good year considering. But if you just take a step back and say, what exactly do you do here? What have you done lately? It's worth pointing out that the main things that the Trump administration wanted, which was a budget in the first month, very difficult to do. and a bill getting money to border and security in the first month, a standalone, which is questionable strategically. None of that has been done. They've basically just done housework around the place, kept the lights on, and maybe by Easter, we'll finally have a budget.
All right, Bedford, we have about 2 or 3 minutes left. I have to get your take because this is like old man yelling at the sky territory at this point. Jonah Goldberg has a one-man fight, basically, against Glenn Beck. He keeps going on X. He keeps posting at Glenn Beck. He was like, really, Glenn? This is the president that you wanted? He was out there. He ripped off the blue-collar contractors. He cheats on all his wives. He doesn't know how tariffs work. This is the president that you dreamed of? Right? Like, what do you make of the man who wrote liberal fascism, who had actual promise at one point in time? What's Jonah doing now?
That was so long ago, that liberal fascism book. It was so long ago. And Jonah Goldberg is just, a lot of those people, actually. You saw it with Bill Kristol. They're young people at one point with a whole lot of promise and the whole world in front of them. And they simply do not measure up to the things that they feel like the world owes them. The things that they'd hoped for in life, that they thought that they ought to be the next Bill Buckley, that Bill thought maybe I'll overshadow my father, Irving. And then when it doesn't happen, and you reach that stark realization that maybe you won't be remembered as a Buckley figure, or you won't be remembered as an Irving Kristol, you start to go a little crazy. You become demented. You start posting weird pictures with your dogs and writing creepy things in your newsletters and turning in all the friends around you. There's this weird, awful thing, especially in the television business, where there's an incredible sense of envy, personal animosity, that drives huge amounts of political, what are portrayed as political calculations and political opinions and decisions. And, I remember back in the day, Tucker once told me that if you live long enough in Washington, D.C., you will become a parody of yourself. Now, Bill Kristol obviously did that. Jonah Goldberg's just kind of become like a Gollum shadow of himself. I'm not sure exactly what to take from him, what's so interesting about him anymore. And you know what else? I think about this a lot. He's missing out on one of the most fun times in conservative politics ever possibly imagined. I mean, if you go to the blaze.com and check out the merchandise shop, you can get a preppy hat that says the Gulf of America, established in 2025. There are songs coming out. There are comedians on your side. There are shows on your side. This is the most exciting time in the world, but instead you're at home tweeting about your pets and being mean to Glenn for winning for once, by the way, for winning for once. What does National Review have to point to for its successes in the last 30 years? The Bush administration? The Iraq War? The expansion of Medicaid? I don't know what the heck he's angry about, but all I can tell you is he's a bit of a golem.
Don't ever turn into that, Bedford. Promise us.
Never.
We will come in and beat you up if that happens. I promise you and our viewers that.
To do self-reflection, what I always think about with these guys is exactly what you're saying is they had a taste of a time where they were very influential, right? And that was taken away from them. And hence, the inability to change and hating on everyone. That's a warning for everybody, right? That, Bill Kristol, Weekly Standard, were influencing the Bush administration, Jonah Goldberg, the Corner back in the day, everyone's reading it. And it's like, guess what? Things change. And if you get mad and envious about it, well, I guess there, but for the grace of God, go all of us. But I don't really want to see it anymore.
Never change, Bedford.
I'm never changing. I'll pickle before then.
All right. We'll catch you on Monday.
See you then.
Have a good one. Don't go anywhere. We're actually going to have a very familiar face for our clip of the week after this. If you want something that you can rely on, there's a great family movie for you this Easter. It's from Angel Studios. You know them. They're The Sound of Freedom. Now they're releasing The King of Kings. You know the movie. A father is going to tell his son the greatest story ever told, and it starts as a bedtime tale that becomes a life-changing journey. Through vivid imagination, the boy walks alongside Jesus, witnessing his miracles, facing his trials, and understanding his ultimate sacrifice. The King of Kings invites us to rediscover the enduring power of hope, love, and redemption redemption through the eyes of a child. And the cast is completely incredible. The voices are done by Oscar Isaac, Pierce Brosnan, Uma Thurman, Forrest Whitaker, just to name a few. And the animation, it's so beautiful. It's the perfect film to enjoy with your family this Easter. So everyone should go see King of Kings. It's in theaters next Friday, April 11th. Get your tickets now at angel.com/Jill. That's angel.com/Jill. Well, over the last couple of weeks, you've heard a lot from us about Yale professor Jason Stanley. He fled the United States to Canada over fascist Donald Trump and his presidency. But today, we're going to go through some of his greatest hits because I want to start a new thing on the show because I want to go on Fridays because there are so many good clips out there. And every now and then, we need to take the time to look back. So the clip of the week, the very first one that we are going to do is Jason Stanley and his announcement on his moving plans on MSNBC. Watch.
I will continue to throw punches against fascism and bullies from Canada. Don't worry. I have 2 Black and Jewish kids. I think my kids actually are more important to me than anything else. So they're using my religion to go after academic freedom, crushing universities supposedly in the name of protecting my people, American Jews. My kids are Jewish. My kids are Black. They're attacking their history. And I want to send a political message, as I've been doing with my work. This comes at great personal cost. This is not I'm taking a huge salary cut. I'm not a super wealthy person. I'll still be well paid, but I'm taking like a 25% salary cut.
It's still so good. This all came about because I remember we had Brandon Gill, friend of the show, on last week, and we had his clip where he was going through and lambasting NPR and being like, is this the proper use of American taxpayer dollars? When you're like, oh, this is fat phobia, if you have to look at the size of seatbelts and the doorways and all that. And I was like, you know what? That was too good. We should have played that again. And this was too good not to revisit one more time.
Yeah, I mean, I think clip of the week makes a lot of sense. It's a Good Friday pastime, and nothing pleases me more than having Stanley front and center as the poster child of what's wrong with American academia. I guess it's now Canadian academia, so that's great. If more people move over there, that'd be great. And a lot of people have been talking about this the entire week because he's become this symbol of lefties moving.
Well, let's take a look at Glenn Greenwald and his take on Stanley's move.
Do you get a sense for who he is? Are you at all surprised that he's fleeing the country thinking he's being persecuted? Like I said, I do think there are people whose civil liberties are in danger, whose liberty is in danger. But it's not them.
So whose civil liberties are in danger, MP?
Well, like he said, it's not them. This is one of the, who is going to come and arrest his kids, who are Black and Jewish, by the way? Who is going to persecute them? I want to hear more details about this. It's fascinating. He's a fascinating specimen, and we should remind everyone who he is, though, with that video of him telling us who he is.
Let's go ahead and watch. I am Jason Stanley. This is the thing that started it all off. Let's go ahead and let's revisit the OG.
We just all need to remember who we're talking about here.
I'm the Jacob Jurowski Professor of Philosophy at Yale University and the author of 5 books, most recently, How Fascism Works, The Politics of Us and Them. What is success? You can be successful at many things. You can be successful at counting blades of grass. Is that success? It isn't success. I'm the Jacob Jurowski Professor of Philosophy at Yale University and the author of 5 books, most recently, How Fascism Works, The Politics of Us and Them.
I absolutely love the zoom in there at the end, too. I am Jacob Stanley.
It's crazy. I mean, someone on the internet made that video, but those videos that are all real. I think they added that wonderful backdrop so that the moving music just to add to the drama, heighten the tension, so who this guy is.
And it's not just us. Vanity Fair is getting in on this too. They had a sit-down interview with him, and they quoted him he called Canada the Ukraine of America.
North America.
North America. Take me through the Ukraine of North America.
Well, this was pretty interesting because I know a lot of, lib craziness, like just, guano crazy stuff. And this was, I'd never heard this before. So he said this. He said, Canada is going to be at the forefront because they're squarely targeted by the United States. So like he's a hero going to Canada because they're like Ukraine, and America is like Russia. So just like Ukraine, this is him, is squarely targeted by Russia. Canada is the Ukraine of North America right now. We're a fascist regime, so we can't tolerate a free democracy next to us. He's saying America's a fascist regime, so we can't tolerate Canada being the Ukraine, we're the Russia, and he's going to go over there and defend us. He does say, Canada's going to be like Ukraine, except they don't have the Ukrainian army. And then he went on to say he didn't think that Trump would use the military against Canada, but he's going to relentlessly target it. And this is the way he can paint himself as a hero, because he's going to go there and throw, no doubt, very effective, hard-hitting punches against fascism from his post in Toronto.
The through line of today's show, it feels like men out there that are trying to stay relevant, right? We have Jonah Goldberg. We have our friend here who is, it feels like an act of desperation.
Mm-hmm. Yes, desperate times, desperate men who are really their sense of identity was too wrapped up in being very important, as Jason Stanley calls himself. Of course, I'm self-important. I'm the professor at Yale. But what you see now is this grasp for some kind of relevance and kind of a temper tantrum, like people throwing things against the wall. Jonah's throwing tweets at the great Glenn Beck, and none of it lands. And it's sort of a lesson, as we were talking about with Bedford, that if you tie your identity to being relevant for the wrong reasons and unprincipled reasons, this is how you end up. And all these people are taking themselves out of the conversation. Here's the important point. People were willing, I was willing to argue with Jason Stanley, about all kinds of things, and tried to. Jonah Goldberg, it's fine. You have disagreements about tariffs. That's, that fair game. Let's debate it. But what's going on is they're having a temper tantrum because they're not in charge, and they'd actually have to argue these things, which they don't want to do. And they're just, whining like a toddler, screaming on the floor, or trying to run out of the house and pack a peanut butter sandwich and say, I'm going to go to Canada. I'm going to run away. They can't deal with reality on the ground. And that's a good thing, because you take yourself out of the conversation because you can't have an adult conversation. You shouldn't be in the conversation in the first place. It's self-selection. Bye-bye.
It feels like the groups are no longer gathering against Trump, right? We don't see rioters in the street, much to Julio Rosas' sadness. He wants them to go out there, so he has something to cover again. But the individuals are still just as unhinged. And it's showing that Trump derangement syndrome is still here to stay. We always talk about Trump 1.0, Trump 2.0. Well, the Trump haters are absolutely still here. Even though we see Wall Street, all the tech giants, everybody else is like, okay, Trump, you know what? We're going to come in and we're going to see what we can do with you. We're going to try and play ball. Well, these individuals are still going to say, no, Trump derangement syndrome, I'm here for you.
They're TDS zombies, right? They lose their ability to reason. They're Trump derangement syndrome zombies. They're here to stay. Now, hopefully we can eventually inoculate, them and acclimate. But yeah, they're all over the place. They're still there, and they can't handle, again, reality, what's going on. They can't really talk to it or even argue or debate.
So watch out for Zombieland. They could be anywhere among us. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday. And you know what? We'll have more on the Trump tariffs, I'm sure, because that's what everybody is talking about right now. We'll see you then.